Hello everyone, thank you for clicking this video. Today I decided to give a little insight on how I leveled up my stone cutting from 0 to 150 in, I would say, probably about a day. So yeah, my current level in stone cutting is 160, and I am actually only level 39. So this is something that you can do from basically the moment that you get a stone cutting table in your settlement. So it's pretty great. First things to know is that this guide might be wildly dependent on your server. So how I did it, I relied very heavily on trading posts, and so if your server has different prices, this may not be as helpful to you, but yeah, so just keep that in mind. Okay, so the next thing to know is when you're leveling your stone cutting, do not cut flawed gems. A lot of people say that you can do this to level up your stone cutting, and then once you get all to level 50, you can cut your green gems. Don't do that. It is a complete waste of gems, and yes, while the flawed gems are cheap on the market, you'll want to save these up for once you're a higher level in stone cutting. Cut flawed gems only really give you 120 stone cutting, and the green give you 1,000, which sounds good, but you will want to use these gems later to convert into higher tier gems, which we'll talk about a little bit later. The next thing to keep in mind is what the gems do. So Malachite, this one is a crowd control gem. It gives you increased damage if you have this gem on and you are attacking creatures, enemies that are crowd controlled. That stuns, roots, slows, those things. Or when put into armor, it does spectral ward, which is 75% elemental and 25% physical damage. That's great. One thing I didn't know at first is when you put these gems into your armor, you will be getting the second what is the word? The second perk. You won't be putting the first perk in that gives you increased damage. It'll most likely be always the absorption or physical or damage reduction perk that will be put into your armor. So don't buy a shit ton of Malachite if you think that every single time you put the gem in, it'll be the damage increase. It won't. So another reason why buying gems at a higher level is very risky, because you really need to know what you're putting in and what you're going to be getting, especially for your gold. Carnelian is a very popular one, so when you are a higher level stone cutting, you'll want to be making Carnelians and prioritizing these. This game is really wonky with the taunts. There is no taunt, so it's largely based off of the amount of damage and or healing you put out. So if you are going into a dungeon and you see that you're constantly pulling mobs, Carnelian is something that you need to invest in. These are the ones that I would cut as flawed just for selling purposes, not for leveling purposes, because any little bit of increase to taunt or decrease to taunt, or threat rather, will be important even at lower levels. So these are ones you want to save for sure. Topaz, this is an int scaling gem, but lightning damage. It's another one that's kind of low tier. No one really uses Topaz right now. There might be weapons in the future that you want to use lightning damage on, or mobs that only take damage through lightning damage, and then Topaz will be good, but for right now it's just an int gem, and so it's, you know, it's for the mages basically. And then you get lightning damage absorption, so meh. Keep it, again, keep all of your flawed gems, but this one's meh. Emerald is our execution gem, so you do more damage against targets below 30% health when the gem is in your weapon, and the thrust damage is I don't know, I think that's a spear or a rapier thing. But yeah, this is actually another good gem. A little bit lower importance than Carnelian, I would say, just based on how much it sells. This is good though. Amber is another really important one that you want to save. This one is a gem that scales off of focus, and it is in nature damage. So this is the one that all the life staffers and the healers will be using. This one is great. Aquamarine, another int scaling one. This one is better than Topaz because it's an ice damage one. All of the ice gauntlet users are probably going to be putting this in their fire staff if their main weapon is ice gauntlet. But again, it's just an int increase. Right now, the damage being converted to nature or fire or whatever, it's not really important. What you're looking at in these gems is what the gem will make your weapon scale off of. So if Aquamarine is cheaper on the market than Topaz, buy Aquamarine because you're going to be getting the same shit with the intellect. Next is Jasper. Jasper is okay. This is, I guess, something that you probably want in PvP, maybe as a tank. 6 or more damage based off of how many hits you've received. It's alright. It's one of those gems that I kind of just throw out and use for pointless jewel crafting, skill leveling. There are better gems than this one for sure. Sapphire. Sapphire is a huge one that I sell. I'm not exactly sure why, because again, it's just an int increase, and all of the int gems give the same exact amount of int based on the tier. So all the flawed gems that scale off int give you 20%. So I don't know why this one sells. I guess people like the idea of using arcane damage more than frost or fire, but this is another int scaling one. This is another one that I save, but just because it sells the most, all of the int gems are going to be pretty good to sell, but it depends on your market. Amethyst, this is one of the least selling gems on my server for now. Disclaimer, we already know that a weapon will be released based on void damage, and the Amethyst is one that increases, or that does void damage conversion. So maybe Amethyst will be more important in the future. I'm saving all of mine just in case, but it's still an int scaling one. So cut flawed ruby. Ruby is a huge one. 20% of damage is converted to fire. This is for all of the fire staff users. Another int gem, and it does fire damage absorption. So because fire staff right now is crazy strong, this is also a gem that some people will put into their armor in order to get the damage absorption. So keep that in mind. This is one that I keep for sure. Moonstone is okay. It's like execute, but for yourself. If you're below 30% health, you do more damage. It's okay, but why would you take this when you are running with a healer, for example? Yeah, I mean, I guess this one would maybe be okay for Berserker hatchet users, but we don't need to talk about that. Next is Opal. Opal is 6% damage, or however much damage increased while your stamina is not full. This is, I mean, if you're dodging all the time, literally all the time, you get a damage increase. So whatever, that's fine. I think that there are plenty of other better gems, but you get elemental damage absorption when you put this in your armor, and I'm assuming elemental damage means fire, nature, lightning, all of that shit. So we'll see. This is a good one for armor, maybe. Cut flawed diamond. This one is 6% damage and healing, or however, based on the tier, while at full health. So this is one that the life staffers use for sure. Yeah. Diamond is a good one. Diamonds are very rare, so keep every single diamond that you get. Do not cut flawed diamond. I'll tell you why later. And Onyx is another big one that is hugely selling. More damage based on if your target has full health. These are how people one-shot other players with their abilities. It's the Onyx. So that's another one that you really want to save. While we're talking about gems, I also want to go over the elements that they need. So the air elements, the air motes, essences, wisps, whatever those gems are, Jasper and Topaz. And these are the cheapest gems, so, or at least on my server, they are the gems that not a lot of people really care for. They don't sell very well, so if you're leveling jewel crafting, for example, Jasper and Topaz, they don't sell well, so you're going to be tossing those amulets in the trash, basically. The next lowest one would be water or aquamarine. It's the ice scaling int one. On my server it sells the less, so you'll want to do a little bit of research before you make all of this stuff to see what gems are least important in your server's eyes. But yeah, so the water and air motes and elements, those are your lowest priorities for getting for gem selling. The next priority would be soul and death motes. The soul and death elements. The soul elements are Malachite, Opal, and Amethyst. Malachite and Opal are the reasons that this is second tier. Amethyst, again, it's useless right now. No one buys it, so if you're looking for an easy cheap gem to buy in order to level up your stone crafting, if you want to go the cutting route, which I don't suggest, or jewel crafting, Amethyst is the way to go. The second death elements, those are Sapphire and Moonstones. Again, I call this one second tier just because Sapphire is great, Moonstone not so much. And the top 3 elements that are most important to be collecting or buying whenever you see them is earth, fire, and life. The earth essence are emeralds and ambers. Fire elements are ruby and carnelian, which is, I would say, number 1 for selling. And then the life, which maybe is number 2 for selling, is onyx and diamonds. So earth, fire, life, those are the ones you want to keep in your bags. Now, back to leveling itself. I leveled up my stone cutting from 0 to 150 in, I would say, a maximum of 4 to 5 hours. Maybe not even that. What a lot of the reviews tell you to do is go for stone block, and that's right. What you want to do is go from stone block from 0 to 50. Once you reach 50, you'll be unlocking the stone brick. And yes, you'll be unlocking all of the common gems too, and that's super eye-catching, but that's not where you want to put your gold. Next, you want to do stone brick until you're level 100. Sounds crazy, but stone blocks, you're already gonna have a shit ton from leveling up to 50 in the first place. Stone is super cheap, at least on my server, and even if it wasn't cheap, it's super easy to gather at any level, basically. So you're going to use all of those stone blocks, convert it to stone brick. I don't have any sandpaper right now, but while you're leveling, you'll get a shit ton anyways. Coarse sandpaper, it's not cheap, but you get a shit ton from every single supply crate, basically. So you don't really have to worry about finding that if you're looking. Once you reach 100, again, you're gonna unlock a shit ton of cut brilliance and fusing brilliance. Those are great if you have the wisps and the gems and you want to start selling brilliance. That makes sense. You can go from there, but it's not gonna give you the level that you need, especially since getting brilliant gems to cut is hard anyways. What you're going to want to do is once you reach 100, you put all of your effort into making lodestone brick. Lodestone, again, on my server is cheap. It was like 20, maybe even 10 cents or 10 silver, I don't know. It was extremely cheap, and I went from 100 to 150 just making lodestone brick. Plus, lodestone brick sells for, on my server, like 4 gold each. I made about 700 lodestone brick, and I got me all the way to 150. And since then, I've been doing all of the conversions, cutting a shit ton of pristines, and yeah, it's been great. Don't pay attention to how much gold I have in the corner. I haven't been playing a lot lately. So yeah, that is the way to level your stone cutting in I would even say maybe 3 hours. If you just sit down and just buy a shit ton of stone, you can level your stone cutting from 0 to 150 in one gaming session. That's what I did. It was great. Yeah, it's insane. Okay, so the next thing to keep in mind once you are a higher level in stone cutting is the conversion rate. So in the future, once your stone cutting is a higher level, what you're going to want to be doing is converting those gems that you save, the flawed, the green tier 2 gems, the tier 3 gems. You want to save those because what's going to sell the most are the pristines. So while some guides will maybe tell you, hey, cut those gems because they give you experience, don't. Because later down the line, you can convert those gems into the higher tiers. So, for example, an onyx, a green onyx, which is great for leveling jewel crafting, only takes 3 flawed onyxes. You only need to be level 50 to make the greens. And then once you level up even further, you'll be able to make the next tier of fusions, which 4 onyxes is 1 brilliant, and then the pristines, which is 5 brilliant, is 1 onyx. Now right now it seems like a lot, but while you're running dungeons, while you're leveling, you'll be getting these gems constantly. Your mistake would be to cut the flawed gems instead of converting them to a green gem and then a blue gem. When you are making the fusions is more important, I would say, than using it for your cuts, but I mean, you can use it for both. Whenever you are making a fusion of a certain gem, brilliant amber for example, make sure to use a solvent of some sort. Last night I made a couple brilliant ambers and I used solvent for them, and I got several extra. I think I got 2 extra from using the rare solvent. And for things like this, it's super important because solvent is really only 10 gold on my server at least. And I got 2 extra brilliant gems that when cut each sell for 200, 300 plus. So when you're doing fusions, even the cuts, it is worth it to buy pure or potent solvent in order to cut them. You can get extra cuts and it's so worth your money, especially if your solvents are cheap. And once you get higher up in the PvP, you can buy all of the converters that you need in order to make them. I can't right now, and but that's because I'm only level 39. So yeah, I highly suggest that you guys do not buy tier 4 or tier 5 gems until you're probably around level 40, 50 and you have consistent gear to put those gems in. On my server, gems are very expensive. Tier 4 gems, which are the brilliant gems, go for anywhere from 200 to 300 based on the gem that you need. And me, for example, I am taking leveling very slowly. I have the same gear on that I've had since level 20 for a variety of reasons, probably also because I like the way it looks. But yeah, it's not good to be spending a lot of gold on gems that you'll probably will need to upgrade in the future, especially considering that you can't always get the exact stone back if you were to salvage it. When you do salvage items, you really only get the lowest tier gem. So if you were to waste a gem on some gear like a brilliant, you would certainly regret it. And the same goes for pristine gems. I wouldn't be buying pristine gems until very high level gear is what you have. And that's coming from someone who sells gems on my server. It's not worth your gold. My biggest issue with stone cutting is I reached 150 very quickly because I was lucky that there was tier 4 and tier 5 stone cutting around the the maps. Unfortunately, right now I am a green, and the tier 5 stone cuttings are in yellow territory, so I had to move all my gems to the yellow territory, which is fine. Gems are super cheap to move, but you'll have to keep an eye out for that. I think lodestone does require tier 4 in order to cut, and cut prestige will require tier 5, so just keep that in mind when you're leveling. Don't go out and buy a shit ton of lodestone if your stone crafting table is tier 2 or tier 3. You won't be able to do it, and traveling to somewhere it does will be pretty expensive with all that lodestone in your bags. Another thing to keep in mind is the map is still bugged as to where it will show one tier lower typically than it actually is. For example, the Monarchs, Bluff, and my server is a tier 5 stone cutting, but on the map it still shows tier 4. So when you're looking, if you see tier 4, you're good to cut pristine gems there, typically. I don't know why this wasn't fixed yet, but it's still pretty good. Overall summary: don't cut flawed gems, don't cut green gems in order to level. Focus entirely on the bricks that you get once you hit 50, 100, and 150. Those bricks is what you need in order to level. And save your gems into making fusions, and also find someone to make quintessences for you because they are expensive. But yeah, thanks for watching the video. If it was helpful to you, click a like, leave a comment, subscribe, check out all of my other socials down below, and yeah, bye.